As we have VAXY now just starting a lap. Let's see what he can do. P3 in the championship as Hazarditch has spun. And I think that is on the exits of turn 7 there, or in the runoff area of turn 7. Being careful to get back out onto the track. Spenny on the overtake coming up to the line. What can he do in his RB? Moving to the inside, and he does take over provisional pole, 49.6. What can the other drivers do? We've got the Mercedes of Wobbly Unit, I believe, coming up to the line, 1.5 seconds as they improve up to P18. The two McLarens now. More importantly, it is going to be Matthew, though, that we want to watch. Sab goes into P4. Can Matthew take provisional pole? No, they can't. P3, though, at the moment, as Alfie takes over a provisional pole, 49.5, as we have the Ferraris now. VAXY, I want to spectate him. Skywalker only goes up to P10. What can VAXY do, though? Coming up to the line, can they take over provisional pole? As I think that was faced on, jumping up to P6 there, as VAXY only goes P5 at the moment. But as we go down to the lights for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Red Bull on pole, and it's lights out and away we go. We have got no game audio in the moment, but we get it as we see two drivers going side by side there into turn 1 of Spenny and Alfie. Can Spenny get into the lead of the race? But no, he has to elect to stay behind as Matthew already up to P3 there. As Spenny now will challenge down the inside of the Red Bull and will get back into the lead. Yellow flags at the back. I believe Millard has had a moment with a Mercedes and possibly a Ferrari down into turn 3. As Spenny will comfortably take the lead there. As we've got a few drivers going side by side there. Jarpo getting up into P6. As we see Face on just staying in P7 at the moment there. But side by side is Suzuki Dior on Benjo, I do believe, as Benjo gets the move there. Matthew charging down the main straight into turn 1. Can he do anything as Spenny sets the fastest lap? But Matthew actually dives down the inside of the Red Bull, and Matthew will get into P2, exactly where he needs to be if he wants to challenge for the championship. As VAXY also goes down the inside, nearly have gone to the moon, but he will have to stay in P4 at the moment. Can go on to the moon do anything though to repass that Ferrari, but unable to do it. Actually, no, he does. VAXY down to P5. I didn't see that happening. My mistake. Sab and Benjo there going side by side into turn 4, and that was got very close, but Sab just about gets the move. Obviously, we do score in the sprint down to 10th place, and as Matthew gets a slight snap there, will that leave him vulnerable to Alfie? But at the moment, he'll be getting 9 points at the moment. P1 getting 10 points, but will it be 8 points for Matthew? He has been able to stay in front at the moment, but he is outside of DRS, and that will surely give Alfie the upper hand there to get back into P2, and that will cancel out Matthew's attempts of trying to stay in P2. Down to the back there, Jaipo is going to try and make a move around the outside of the Gone to the Moon as well, but not able to make it. VAXY down to P6 now, but he is going to go back down the inside of the Aston Martin and also down the inside of the Red Bull as well. Can VAXY get back up into P5 and even into P4? He's still on the inside and he is burning a little bit, and VAXY does eventually get into P4 there as Matthew repasses the Red Bull to get back into P2 as we are already on lap 3, and this race has been already super chaotic and I can't even keep up with what is going on at the moment. Koi almost trying to get into P7 there. A few moves at the back, side effects, and Wobbly Unit going side by side there into turn 5 and 6 as the Suzuki Dior in the Sauber gets a snap and goes into the wall. VAXY is vulnerable to Jaipo there as Jaipo goes down the inside. Alfie also looking to go down the inside of Matthew as well, as both championship protagonists losing places there. A few drivers going into the pits as we are going to go 3 wide there at the back nearly. But Gone to the Moon stays in P6 in the moment. Koi and Faison, I believe, swapping places in the Williams. Yawn trying to go down the inside of one of the Williams, but instead he's going to be under pressure by Sab. Around the outside, Sab is going to try and make it going into turn 3. And I think Sab is going to make that move. Although Yawn tries to actually fight it back down the inside going into turn 3. Can they hold that going into turn 4? Sab just about stays in front though, but he goes a little bit... Well, basically, just trying to leave the space. Yawn is able to get back down around the outside, has the inside for turn 5 and turn 6. And Yawn does indeed manage to stay in P9. Some good defensive driving there from the Sauber in inverted commas, as Jaipo is all over the back of Matthew, and Matthew has dropped place to Alfie. We have a safety car as that's Arav, I believe, in the wall into the... Yeah, into the wall in the castle section. Ripped his front right suspension, and that is going to bunch up the pack. And now this is a great chance for the soft drivers to pit. Mediums, nearly, but some of them might elect to maybe go into hards, maybe. We'll have to wait how that pans out. Hazardtich is on the hard tyres in a sprint race, which is interesting. Will we see any medium drive or any soft drivers, or sorry, any medium drivers that are going to be pitting now to go onto the softs? So SPENNY, I think, maybe have cut the pit lane there, so that might ruin his championship hopes already. Matthew already into P3 at the moment. Alfie does, though, indeed get the move on SPENNY there to get back into the lead of the race. And now it's Matthew versus SPENNY. SPENNY trying to go around the outside of the Red Bull to get back into the lead, but the Red Bull holds the inside. Can Matthew find the switchback on SPENNY? And Matthew does, crucially, get in front of SPENNY. And I think at the moment, Matthew and SPENNY will still be tied on points, and it all goes down to the feature race. Can Matthew get into the lead, though, as Alfie is pulling to the inside to try and break the slipstream? No, he can't. Jaipo going down the inside of SPENNY. And if he can do that, then this means at the moment Matthew will be the current Division 3 champion. But Jaipo still holding it around the outside of SPENNY. And Jaipo is into P3. At the moment, Matthew has won the Division 3 Drivers' Champion. And it will go down to the feature race to see who will, if he will be able to keep that. But Suzuki Dior gone to the moon, going side by side there. Unable to make it, but Liam and Millard going side by side there nearly, but having to back out, as we are going to see Suzuki Dior and Gone to the Moon still fighting it side by side into turn 7, but Gone to the Moon just stays in front at the moment. SPENNY trying to go past as well, but Matthew does get into the lead. Jaipo into P2, but still side by side between those two going into turn 1, both of them leaving enough space. Matthew does not want to do anything that he shouldn't be doing, and Matthew rightfully choosing the safest option to back out. Can Matthew get it? But what will SPENNY or VAXY be able to do? VAXY's a bit too far back, so it will just depend on what SPENNY can do. But can Matthew at least get into the lead of the race? And he is going to pull to the inside, but I think SPENNY is going to follow him through. Down the inside, SPENNY tries it on the Red Bull of Alfie, and SPENNY does get into P3. Matthew into the lead. Can VAXY do anything? No, he can't. But Matthew currently getting 10 points to his name. SPENNY with only 8. Matthew through turn 16 there, and he is going to be under pressure by Jaipo, SPENNY, and Alfie behind. Maybe even VAXY, but VAXY is still a little bit too far back. Maybe Alfie is as well. But SPENNY is in a prime place here to try and attack Matthew. Already going around the outside of Jaipo, and he is going to pull to the inside of Matthew as well as we head down the main straights. And SPENNY gets back into the lead of the race. Matthew still trying to fight down the inside, but unable to. Koi there trying to make a move on VAXY. Very close to putting VAXY into a wall there, but Koi just about keeping in front of VAXY there into P5. Good fight between those two, though, but will VAXY be able to fight that back? I do not know, as I think Sab there might have had a slight issue there. Jaipo not able to make the move on SPENNY, though. As you go 3 wide here, phased on down the inside of one of the Hasses there of Yawn. And maybe trying to make a move on Benjo soon, but I thought Sab there was maybe going to try and get up the inside of Yawn, but unable to. Let's see what Matthew can do, though, out of turn 16. He will look to drop everything. SPENNY is on 51%. Matthew is going to have all of the battery in the world, but has SPENNY just been able to stay in front? But here we go, down the straights. What can Matthew do? Jaipo still in P2. Is he closing in on SPENNY? And I don't think he is. But Matthew is going to get that slipstream. Will he pull to the inside? SPENNY will win the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Matthew and Jaipo up to the line. Matthew just misses out. And we'll stay in P3. Koi will finish in P4 with Alfie in P5. VAXY finishes P6 with wobbly units. Just half a tenth behind them. Phased on finishes in P8 with Benjo nearly in P8, and Yawn even closer with Benjo there in P10, which rounds off the points as we go to 5 red lights for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in a championship winning race that could be Matthew's. Lights out and away we go. We immediately get underway now. Heading down into turn 1, Matthew already around the outside of Jaipo, and Matthew already up into P2 at the moment. Jaipo not able to make any other moves, though, but VAXY down the inside of the Red Bull of Alfie. Oh, there's a snap there and a crash between Hazardtich and Gone to the Moon. Maybe Arav, I think, maybe. Skywalker is off on the runoff, but down into turn 2. Wobbly Unit gets through on VAXY. Still side by side though. VAXY still holds it down the inside and will get into P6. And I think FaZe Dom got the move on the Mercedes as well. Side by side is Sab and Yawn, but Sab gets through there. Koi and Alfie, they're having a slight battle. Obviously, it doesn't really mean anything for the championship fight, as I think Shukarek has actually spun it there in the background there. Down into P16 he is. Alfie and Koi still making moves there. Liam gets through on Wobbly Unit. I think Miller trying to make a move on Benjo as well. Down the inside going into turn 3. Still side by side, but Millard eventually gets that move stick. Matthew getting very close to Spenny now, down the main straight, but Jaipo is equally looking quick as well. As there's a crash in the back, that is Suzuki Dior, but can Matthew get into P1? But Jaipo looking equally as quick. Spenny back down into P2, and Matthew now is in a place where he wins the championship into the lead of the race. Jaipo switching on the overtake for a split second there to just try and pull his momentum through to Matthew, but doing so, Spenny will equally be just as quick. Spenny pulling to the inside. Spenny managing to stay in front of the moment. Spenny back into the lead. Wobbly Unit has retired, and that brings out a virtual safety car because that was down the straights. What happened to Wobbly Unit? I think he either spun it into the wall or has been crushed in there. The medium drivers and the hard trial runner of Sab just in front of Millard, who actually has jumped with that virtual safety car up into the provisional lead at the moment, Millard is. As there's a yellow flag, and I think that is Shukarek, who has spun into the castle section. Maybe has to use the runoff area, and he is in P16. And another yellow flag, that is Shukarek once again, breaking all of his front end plate there. What is the Mercedes doing? Please don't retire. Please don't retire. Just please don't retire. Sab's tyres are going to be severely worn as Arav has retired from the session. Look at Millard though. Millard is going down the inside of both of them, and Millard might even get into the lead of the race as well. Sab down to P4 at the moment, and it is going to be P5, but Millard does indeed get into the lead of the race. Spenny into P2, Jaipo into P3, Matthew is on the inside as well and gets into P4. And Sab and VAXY going side by side there. Sab stays in front of the moment, as I think Jaipo got a 10-second penalty. So did Matthew. Okay, they can get removed. They can get removed. Don't panic. They can get removed. They can get removed. I'm fairly sure they can get removed. I'm fairly sure they can get it removed. Arav overtook in the pits. They can get the removed. Sab is falling many places now, down to P9 now. As Benjo and VAXY going side by side there, as I think Benjo gets a slight tap from FaZe Dom behind. FaZe Dom going around the outside into turn 7 there, but just eventually has to back out. Down the straight as we start lap 16, Spenny to the inside, and will try and sneak through the middle of both Aston Martins, but the Aston Martins creating a very good wall there and blocking that RB in. I want to put my head through a wall. Matthew tries to go around the outside of Millard there, but Matthew is no match to the Aston Martin of Millard. Matthew gets into P3, Spenny into P2. As Spenny gets into the lead of the race there. Doesn't really mean much, but he is. Oh, that's Alfie. Alfie is just completely spun around. I don't know if it was tapped or anything, but there he is in a wall. And his front end plate is complete. Well, his front left at least is completely gone. Spenny and Jaipo, I assume, are going to switch. Millard might actually get the move on Matthew as well, which he already does before the DRS, I do believe. Jaipo gets the fastest lap of the race. VAXY also going down the inside of Matthew as well, down the inside into turn 1. Ooh, as I thought, Matthew nearly hit the wall there. But VAXY does indeed get into P4 though, going into turn 2. But Matthew with a much better exit around the outside, and Matthew will retain in P4 at the moment. Spenny finally gets the overtake on Jaipo to get into the lead of the race. VAXY still isn't done though, but isn't able to find the move down the inside to get into P4 into turn 3. That was turn 3, but Millard 8/10 behind Spenny at the moment. Yellow flags in the back, and that is that gone to the moon? And it is gone to the moon now. And he doesn't have a single end plate at the moment, so He's going to be at a massive disadvantage with downforce, but I'll tell you what, on the straights, he might actually be quite rapid. Matthew still unable to get back within DRS range of Millard, so this might be a pretty easy whatever podium it is for both Aston Martins, which they'll be delighted about, but Jaipo then moving to the inside. Although they're still going to maintain it side by side into turn 1 as Spenny nearly going into the wall there, going a bit deep, but Jaipo gets into P1. Will Spenny be able to get the repass? And he is literally, look at how much he's gaining. And into turn 1, they are still going to remain at side by side, but a slight snap there from Jaipo, and Spenny will get into the lead of the race. VAXY and Face On there going side by side. Face On just on the inside, just about gets in front. And VAXY is still going to try and remain it. Jaipo gets back into the lead of the race, but it's still side by side between VAXY and Face On. VAXY just about stays in front of Dom though. Now, if Spenny can stay behind the Sauber onto the final lap, that would be crazy, but also slightly disappointing. Because it means, obviously, Spenny will win the race with the DRS range, or, you know, with the DRS. But due to a back marker. So, I don't really know how I feel about that, but that looks to be what is going to be happening. Because Suzuki Dior is there. He's on soft tyres, so he is going to be quicker than Spenny. Millard has dropped 1.1 seconds, so Spenny has probably got it anyway, but Spenny will have that benefit of DRS. Matthew 1.5 seconds, so he is closing. Maybe both Aston Martins having a slight snap there, but Spenny is now going to burn to try and at least get into, well, basically to win it, but it's not going to matter because Matthew in P4, he just needs to finish this race pretty much, and he is going to do that. But Spenny is going to come across the line to win the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. It's going to be an Aston Martin 2-3, but Matthew across the line. He will finish P6 finalised, but that doesn't really matter. But he is going to be your Division 3 champion of the world. Well done to Matthew and McLaren for that amazing result. 3 rounds, I do believe, before the season finale. But Matthew is your champion. VAXY does in fact finish in P3, Face On P4, Benjo P5, Jaipo P6, but obviously those 10-second penalties can get removed. Koi will finish in P8 with Liam P9. Side Effects will finish in P10, 46 hundredths or thousandths of a second behind Liam. Photo finish between Side Effects and Sab as well. Sab being 17 milliseconds behind Side Effects. Alfie will finish in P12 with Gone to the Moon in P13. Skywalker will finish in P14 and Suzuki Dior will then finish in P15 once he gets around to the checkered flag and wins. But the major turning point here, Matthew is your Division 3 champion of the world.